That's so fun. Oh, hey everyone. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Live Fearlessly vlog series. Jess, thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to give you a little proper introduction. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. I'm just excited to talk to you.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we made it happen. And I'm super excited for everyone to hear more about you and to learn how they can connect with you on a deeper level. So I'm going to give you a quick little introduction here, and then we'll just dive right in. So
Wonderful.
Jess is the owner of Light Up Work, where she helps professionals finally reach their big career goals, do the work they love, and ultimately make more money by making real change in their confidence and interpersonal skills. She has over a decade of experience running training programs, coaching, and consulting on workplace improvements across dozens of industries and countries. That's super fun. Okay, she is a TEDx speaker who loves geeky conversations about confidence, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Well, we're going to be besties because those are my geeky things too.
We're geeking out. It'll be good.
And when she's not coaching a client, you can find her chasing her two kiddos and her and your husband.
I do chase him a little bit. It's fair. I'm like, hey, come on. We got stuff to do. Just a little bit of that going on.
She's located in Canada and she loves tea. So it says that she'd be brewing another cup of tea. And I love that.
Mm-hmm. Always.
So Jess, thank you so much for joining us. What kind of tea is your favorite?
Okay, now this is where I'm going to really let down all the tea aficionados out there. I love an English breakfast tea, just like a strong black tea with a dash of milk. And I have this whole drawer of like white chai and serenity tea and green and matcha. And I just drink a black tea like all day. That's what I know. What are you going to do? Classic.
Simplicity, right?
That's right. Classic simple.
That's totally awesome. I love it. I love that you have the other options, but you're like, I'm just simple and like classic and it's good.
Just a regular tea. Yeah.
I love it. Does your husband drink tea also?
Even though he's British and the stereotype is he should be drinking tea all day, he drinks coffee. So he has his coffee and I have my tea and we, breaking down cliches one at a time.
Rebels together.
Yeah, that's about as rebellious as we get as well. So yeah, it works.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I love it. So, okay, so you have two kiddos. You are located in Canada. And tell us what part of Canada you're in.
So I'm in this beautiful little storybook looking town on a river called Amherstburg, which is, how to describe it? It's the southernmost point you can pretty much get in Canada. So we're like across the lake from, I want to say like Ohio, Cleveland, maybe, Michigan, that kind of area, which for Canadians, we're down south. For you guys, it's like, wow, that's like, it's really far north, but no, we're down south. That's where we live.
Cool. I love it. And are you originally from there?
I'm from about an hour from here. I left when I was 17, swore I'd never come back. Not because I have some horrible traumatic story, but as a 17-year-old, you're like, I'm getting out of my small little town and I'm never coming back. And so I moved all over Canada. I moved to the East Coast. I moved to Toronto. I didn't live on the West Coast. I spent a bunch of time there. Moved over to England for a while. And then now I'm back an hour from where I grew up. Isn't that just how it works?
Yep. Sometimes that's just how it works.
And the weird thing is I love it. Like as a 17-year-old, I'm like, ugh, why would anyone live here? And I'm like, mild winters, beautiful summers, there's a lake, there's a river, there's wineries. What else do you want? This is
more does an adult need. 17-year-old might need a little bit more, but an adult, we're pretty.
No, this is beautiful. Yeah. Anyways.
I love it. That's so cool. So, so those are really fun facts about you. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us? I always like to start with something that, maybe someone can't just know by looking at your social media or, anything like that. So is there anything fun that you want to share, a fun fact about Jess?
Oh my gosh. If you asked me to do a dissertation on like workplace dynamics, I could dive in, but something fun about me, I'm like, oh my God, my palms are sweating. Something fun about me. I like to read. I like tea so much. I got a tattoo of it. I guess that's something. My little teacup. Well, it's upside down. My teacup tattoo. And I'm getting the next part done on my upper arm. Well, supposed to be November, but the whole global pandemic tends to put tattooing down on the list of priorities. So we'll see when they open back up. But I'm getting my next piece done up here too.
So you guys are closed down there.
Yeah, we're starting to open back up, but
Okay.
yeah, they're playing it safe, which, like, I'm fine with it.
Right. Right. How old are you have 2 children. How old are
Two
they?
kids. So the littlest one just turned 8 months and my eldest just turned 3.
That's awesome. And is it a boy and a girl?
2 girls, Ray
2 girls.
and Ivy. And I've never seen 2 humans who have more opposite personalities. I'm like, I don't know if this means they're going to be best friends forever or despise each other as they get older.
Right.
I'm hopeful on the best friend side, but they got to do them. So we'll just, as long as they're respectful, I'm not going to get in the way, but it's incredible how different they are. It's just.
And did you say Ray?
Ray. She's my oldest. And then the youngest is Ivy. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it, I have to ask because my husband would kill me if I didn't ask. Is it from Star Wars?
No. And
okay.
No, but do you know what? If we were going to have a boy, our second one, our name we wanted was Finn. But I'm like, we cannot have Ray and Finn. It's like naming your kids Luke and Leia. Like we can't do that. So we had to take it off the list.
Oh my gosh, I have to share this. I don't know when I would ever be able to share this again. So the fact that you just said it would be like naming your kids Luke and Leia. No, my kids aren't named Luke and Leia. But...
By the way, no offense to anyone who chose Luke and Leia. I just, I'm not a diehard fan enough to go for it.
Okay, so my husband is a diehard Star Wars geek. And with that being said, when we were dating, I had this obsession. Like, I wanted twins. I grew up with twin boys as my best friends, and I've always thought it would be so cool to have twin boys, right? But then I learned that we have boy-girl twins that run in my family. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, what if it's a boy-girl twin? And so, right, like just young talking about these things before kids were even in the picture. And he goes, we're going to make a deal. If we have a boy-girl twins, then they need to be called Luke and Leia. And I was like, no way. And he's like, yeah, that's the only way that like I'm gonna have kids with you.
It's the only way I'll agree.
Twins, yeah. If we have twins, that's what they need to be called, Luke and Leia. And I was like, I'm not naming them Luke and Leia. And then we went through this list of like other scenarios that they could still be themed around Star Wars, that if it was twins, Luke and Leia. And I was like, no way. No.
Yeah. Well, and the challenge is the Luke is just out in the world being Luke, which is a normal. And then Leia, everyone's like, oh, the buns, Leia. Like there's no getting away from that one. It's not like Luke and Sally. You can kind of,
Right.
Yeah. Anyways.
Oh my God.
So Ivy,
I'd probably never be able to share that story until just now. So thank you for that. Oh yes. Okay. So let's dive in and let's talk about you. So we're here today to talk about fear and how, there was a significant time in your life that took you to a place where you're like, yeah, I remember when fear held me back from living my life fully. So in your mind, like what life experience did you go to when we had that first discussion about when fear showed up for you and how that was? So tell us about that time.
I will. And my preamble is, and why I really wanted to share this story with you and have a chat about it is, so this would have been about 9 years ago. And I was very successful in my corporate career, very confident in work. And from the outside looking in, you'd imagine like, she's got the career she's worked for. She's having a lot of successes. She makes great money. Like all of it's like she's like presenting to C-suite executives with no qualms, no sweaty palms, the whole, So from the outside, right? Outside looking in, it was like, oh, she's secure, confident, good to go. And well, that was true at work. This was when I was single. So I had broken up with my long-term boyfriend, whatever, like 10 years ago or 12 years ago, something like that. And so I was single, had this dream career. Everyone thought like, oh, she's so confident. No, like, maybe. But I did want to be in a relationship and I couldn't admit it. So when people would be like, oh, it's like, go you, girlfriend, like single power, I'd be like, yeah, I don't need a man. And well, I didn't need a man. I wanted a man. but I couldn't, like, I just couldn't, I'd freeze up. And so I had a coach at the time for my career to help me with my next promotion. That was what I thought would solve all my problems.
Sure.
As you do. And he was helping me a lot in my career. And then we got onto the topic of how I was single. And he said, like, is your personal life
Is
where
it by
you want
choice?
it to be?
Yeah.
Is that by choice? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, what are you doing? I said, well, like I'm on dating website. Like I was on whatever the ones were like 10 years ago. I was like, I'm on dating websites. And he's like, okay. And have you talked to anyone? I was like, yeah. And he's like, have you met them though? I'm like, no. He's like, have they asked you to meet? I'm like, yes. He's like, help me connect the dots. What's going on here? And I was like, I'm scared. What if they don't like me? What if it makes me start to question myself again? What if I get into a bad relationship again? And I was so just frozen about the whole thing. So he said, okay. So he said, well, I got an idea. I got homework for you. I was like, okay, what do you got? He said, find 3 friends that you're already close to and just tell them. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You can just say, hey, I'm looking to date again. I'd love to, if you know anyone, I'd love to be introduced. And I was like, yeah, that's easy. I can do that. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. And I had the opportunity. This isn't even like, oh, I was working late nights. No, I'd met up with people for drinks specifically to have this conversation.
Oh, no.
And I couldn't do it. And so I had my follow-up call with my coach. He's like, great. So do you have some blind dates lined up? Like, how'd it go? And I just started like ugly crying. I was like, I can't do it. And it's too hard. And I just don't want to do it. So, I think of that story when you talk about fear because I think it was so unknown. Like it was so trapped inside, and it's so easy for us, well, for me, and if it's true for me, it's true for others, to look at other people and see them in their element and think they're so confident. Why can't I be confident for them? They're so fearless. Why can't I be fearless like them? And it's just bull, like that's not actually true. There is something that they're scared of too, because there was for me.
Yeah.
And it held me back, and it meant I had this great career, but not a life that I wanted. And it wasn't about having a partner. It was about being honest and authentic about what I wanted. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%. That's true in everything that we're doing. I feel like it's really, if we have the career and the relationship, well, then we're missing something else. Like we're definitely a work in progress. Like as human beings, we're never really going to stay there, which is a good thing, because if we're not growing, we are quite literally emotionally dying inside. So we need to be striving for more and for better in our lives in whatever areas that is, right? Like if our relationships are good, then our finances might be bad, or our spiritual guidance is terrible. Like there's going to be something that we always need to be improving on. So for you during this time, it was, the relationship piece, because you had it down for, what you wanted for professional. So moving into that too, like, so where were you mentally during that, right? Like you were having this breakdown and before, so you kind of just kept it surface level, right? Like to everyone's knowledge, you were like owning it all.
Living my dream life. Like, whoop, whoop.
So where were you mentally during that? Like, because you weren't aware of it, everything was okay. But then where did the mindset go once you became aware of what your actual fear was? And if you actually want to put like a pretext on, like, what was your fear?
Yeah. And I wish I could give this really inspiring answer of like, once I admitted it, I just went out and dated it. It was great. No, like I went even more into the valley from there, because then I was aware of it. So then I was ashamed for not only like the fear of putting myself out there, but then I was ashamed. So I was like, I shouldn't want a romantic partnership. I should be like, female power. Like I shouldn't want this other person. I should just be happy on my own. So it was this probably a good 3 to 4 months of just sort of a shame storm.
Yeah.
And the fear for me, if I was to really boil it down, it was like, it was fear of being vulnerable. because I didn't really have to be vulnerable at work. Not really. I mean, here and there for sure. But
What was your work?
I was in like learning and development. So I was doing
Okay.
training, leadership coaching, like I was
Stuff that could keep you busy
workplace
enough
organization
not to get
stuff.
distracted.
Like, oh yeah, I was up till like 11 doing like salary spreadsheets and, so.
Super
Oh yeah.
sexy stuff.
Oh yeah, I could run from that shame all day, girlfriend. And then Sunday would come along. I'm like, I'm out of things to do. I'm gonna go for a walk. Like I'm gonna run. I'm gonna run away from this. But yeah, it was a big old shame storm of shame of being afraid, shame of wanting this thing, just all of this murkiness. And
Yeah.
how I really started to come out of it was, well, working with my coach helped, but a big part of it is I kind of became a little bit more friends with my fear, if that.
Yes.
And I know you and I are on the same page with that concept, but I was kind of like, instead of making fear this thing that I shouldn't feel, and it meant I was weak, and it meant I was pathetic, and it meant I couldn't get my shit together, sorry for swearing. I was like, okay, fear is there because I'm either about to be brave or something is really wrong. Like if you're standing at the mouth of a dark alley at 3 a.m., that fear is telling you, like, don't go down there. That's good. Right. That's good. That's a useful voice to be like, yeah, I shouldn't go down a dark alley. And the other fear is, the other time it shows up for me is I'm about to be bad. Like I'm about to be brave. I'm about to take a risk. I'm about to be vulnerable. And while that's scary, that's just my reminder that I'm being brave, and that's how I started just changing my relationship to when that voice came up. Instead of this is something to run from, it was like, this is just useful information. So what do I want to do with this information?
I love it. We're definitely on the same page with that. I know it is very much about the vulnerability piece that, so many people see fear as a negative, and like you said, it's there to protect us. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's what it's meant to be for, is that protection. But really, it's protecting us to say, like, what if what you want doesn't come true? What if what you want isn't really what you need? And then it's really just challenging us to take that step in the dark alley to see if there's actually a light in there that is meant for us. So, well, and 100%.
Now that you say that, I've never really, I've noticed this before, but I've never put it together.
Yeah.
All of my relationships up till my spouse now, who I met after doing this work, yes. I always played it so cool. Like I was always just like, yeah, we could meet up, but like, whatever, I don't really care. Like, it's fine. And I did. And then when they would inevitably, that relationship would fall apart, because who wants to be with someone who they're not even sure if they like them? Like, I don't. So why, I'd be like, why doesn't anyone just love me? Like, oh my God, just talk about self-sabotage, right? I was so desperate to not get hurt that I would manufacture my own hurt. It was just this, whatever.
Wow.
But after kind of noticing that, my spouse that I met now, I met him, I must admit, well, he was on vacation he's British. He was in Canada for a weekend for his brother's wedding. That's how we met. And I gotta guess, one of the reasons I was so myself with him is I was like, meh, I'll probably never see him again. Who cares if he doesn't like me? So
I can be my authentic self. Let's just rock
like,
this.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. So that was a nice hack for me to get past my own garbage. And then when he did, we stayed in touch, and months later he said, I'd really like to come in. I know you said I could come visit sometime, and I'd really like to. So I started looking at flights, and I was like, ew, why does he want to come visit me? Oh, and then,
he's a mass murderer.
I was like, oh my God, he's so weird. And then a friend of mine was like, or he likes you. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. You're right. Okay. Keep doing the work. Okay.
That's awesome. I love that. So was there any so in that transitional phase, right, when you're realizing that, hey, I really do actually want that, and that 3-4 month time period before you met him and started all of that, was there any other friendships or relationships that were changing along with you? I know you mentioned going out with friends and you weren't able to tell them that you wanted this in your life, like how did relationships like shift for you before you met your husband or in that transition?
Oh, it's such a good question. So two things that jump to mind. One is I was just more genuine, and
Yeah.
call me crazy, but that's kind of what people want in a
Right.
relationship of any kind, romantic, friendship, platonic,
Yes.
business. People do want genuine, right?
Yeah.
So I got, I wouldn't say I got closer to my friends because I've had the same friends for a long time, but it was a warmer, more loving relationship because I was being more myself. I wasn't like posturing and I'm so great, like, woo. So that, and they also started like trying to be my wingman a little bit because they didn't know that I wanted a relationship. So that
Right.
happened as well. And then I noticed actually a bigger impact at work because I'd been doing this work from my personal life and it spilled over, and I was being much, even though I was already confident at work, I wouldn't say I was brave at work. And so I
Yeah.
started having much more difficult conversations, rocking the boat more, which, well, on the surface looked annoying, was actually really good for my career,
Yeah.
and made me have a much bigger impact. And, I ended up quitting and moving to England in the end, but
Hey,
it
that's a
was,
brave thing.
yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't have done that before that. I would have just been lost in, well, what if it goes wrong? And what if I don't like it? And what if I'm giving up this whole career? And what if it was a fluke that I was successful here? Like, what if I can't replicate it and all the things, but I still
Yeah.
heard all those things. That's the point. Well, I'm like on a huge soapbox here. None of those
This is your
voices.
soapbox,
Yeah,
sister. Own it.
I'm going for it. None of those voices have actually gone away for me. They're still there. Like I still hear
Absolutely.
all of that stuff. I just, A, I don't buy into it. B, I notice it more. Like it's become much more, oh, there's that fear voice. Okay, cool. Hello. Instead of identifying with it and going, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm not supposed to be
Yes.
employed because, okay, cool. So I just want to be very clear. Like this hasn't gone away for me because I've done this work. I notice it, and I've got some tools to work, like duck and dive and dodge around it.
Yeah. I love that. I was just talking about that last night, like recognizing the tape that we play in our head to really have that awareness of when we're getting the itty bitty shitty committee that keeps talking the same stuff. And then,
There's a
from
slight chance I'm going to steal that, by the way. That's so
the itty
good. The
bitty,
itty bitty, itty
yeah.
bitty.
So like realizing that, right? Like
Mm,
recognizing that we do end up playing the same freaking tapes in our head of the negativity. And then once we're queued up from it, like, the lyrics to the song, how it's about to play out,
mm,
that movie that you already know the ending to, like shift that script, shift what happens in the end for yourself to have a positive outcome. And I love that you talked about how you were doing personal deep diving, but it was spilling over into your professional world,
mm,
because I'm actually someone that believes like there's really not a work-life balance. Like they intersect and they kind of overspill into each other. And I mean, I personally, that's how I design my businesses as an
mm.
entrepreneur. I'm like, they need to intersect. I have 3 small kids and a husband. Like, if I can't find ways to kind of mesh those together, like, mama's gonna be crazy.
Right? It's so
Yeah.
true. And I see a lot of really well-meaning advice in my world of working with businesses and corporates and professionals of don't take it personally, right? Right? It's that thing of like, okay, get feedback, but don't take it personally, or take the emotion out of it. And I'm just like, that is well-meaning and I understand where it comes from, but it's just nonsense because it is
Yeah.
personal. I'm
Yes.
the first to say feedback's not about you. It's about that person's perspective. So it's just a data point, but that doesn't mean, like, if someone tells me, oh, I think you're probably the worst coach I've ever worked with, I'm
That's a
going to
little
take it
different.
personally. Like I just am. And I will process it.
Nobody would
I
ever
will.
say that about you, by the way.
But there's someone out there. Granted, we would have vetted and I wouldn't have worked with them in the first place. But anyways, it is personal. It's going to
Yeah.
hurt your feelings, and that's okay. Like, don't make that wrong either of like, oh, I got some feedback about I talked too quickly in presentations and I'm kind of bummed out and I shouldn't be bummed out. And no, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's all right. That does hurt your feelings. That's fine. That's all right.
Yeah. That's a good point too. So one of my keynote speeches is about making fear your best friend and what that looks like. And specifically, I talk about a piece that is, our best friend is really authentic in showing up and giving us those constructive criticisms, right? Like when it's in love and we're giving people something to tweak and make better, it's in love and it's a gift for their growth. It's not to criticize them and put them down. That's a very different thing. If you're going to be like telling your best friend like that those clothes look horrendous on you, if you tell them they're fat and they look disgusting in it, like that's different than just saying like, what if we did this or something else, like something for their growth instead of the criticism, which can really be where the rub-in happens for the professional world, is that they're not really tactical a lot with all of that, and it's very different in that human piece, right? Like the vulnerability is really what I personally have found has been missing in corporate world, is that they take out the human part of that and they think the vulnerability and like don't take it personal and stuff, like that's quite literally where the problems are.
120,000,000%. I mean, I see things like managers and leaders saying, and I only work with nice people, by the way. If you're a jerk, I'm like, there's other people who can help you. There's tons of us out there. Just go find one of them.
Yes.
And they'll say something like, I need to tell them this tough piece of feedback, but I don't want to hurt their feelings. And well, that is true. And because again, I only work with nice people. The challenge with that is that's only half the story, that you don't want to hurt their feelings. The other half is you don't want to face the discomfort of being the bad guy, of them getting upset. You don't want to have the discomfort. So there's a kindness and an altruism in some of these tough moments at work, in our life, whatever, because you don't want to be a jerk. And that is true. And the other thing is you don't want to be uncomfortable. So you kind of have to embrace the vulnerability piece of, they might be mad at me, but I can't, I kind of have to do this thing. I have to be honest, because otherwise what are we doing here?
Right. I think that too is a huge point that I'll just say that I think that like leaders specifically in corporate, they need to be growing constantly because of those situations, right? Like we get in our own heads, and then like sometimes leaders have their own agendas and then they aren't growing themselves and they're just focusing on the people that they're supposed to be growing. And that's quite literally why I've decided like I'll never work with a coach that doesn't have a coach themselves, right? Like they need to be growing as well, instead of just asking people to do things that we're not doing. Like that just doesn't sit well with me. So that's just a piece that just came through in talking about like bosses and leaders stepping up to like ask things of people. It's like, well, there's other ways to do it, and there's ways that we can be continuing to grow, but everybody needs to kind of be doing that instead of just kind of being a guru and being like,
oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I used to joke that like, I wish companies could have a mandate where before you could be in a people leadership role, you had to be in therapy or coaching for at least a year. But I was like, don't know if legally they can do that, but it's like, that would solve a lot of our problems, because we like spew our garbage out on the people around us. Like instead of feeling the discomfort, we just want to like just puke it all over the people around us. And
yeah.
What's that saying that it's kind of a cliche, but it's so true. Hurt people. Oversimplified, but I see that in workplaces for sure. When you're not dealing with your garbage, you're throwing it on other people and they are then feeling the pain of that. You've just transferred it over.
Yep. And let's shift that and say empower people, right?
Yes, right? Flip side is just as true. Absolutely.
I love it. So, okay. So I know we just went on a total tangent about leadership, and I told you when I read your bio that I would geek out with you, and there it is. Like I'm a huge
It's my Friday gift. I loved it.
Yeah. So, okay. So talking back about your story and like getting real with knowing that you wanted the relationship and companionship and all of that, like what would you say compelled you to jump ship from having that fear? Was it really having your coach to like help you work through the emotional side of why that was, or was there something significant that really happened? Whatever you want to share.
It's a good question. And I wish I could be like, no, like I came to this beautiful place where
Right.
the discomfort of not having it was, no, none of that happened. If I hadn't worked with that coach, I'd probably still be single, or I'd just be in a terrible relationship. I don't know which one. No, it was working with that coach. And that's actually what inspired me, as most of us have done, right? We've worked with a coach and been like, this is the most amazing thing. I want to do this now. But no, if I hadn't worked with him, I'm not convinced I would have figured this out. Maybe.
It would have probably,
maybe.
I believe it would have. It just would, like, my thought is that the point of getting coaches and help in scenarios is that we're going to get there faster, right? Like, that's why we cut a check.
Yes.
You invest and you cut a check because you want to get there faster.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's a really powerful point to realize, like, I think it's really just about asking the questions. So he asked you a simple question, which seems like a simple question, but then it's a layer and going deeper in your mind and really figuring out the emotion behind that. So it was really like the questions being asked by your coach that probably just kept progressing to like pull you through that kind of thing.
And I'll tie in our whole little thing about discomfort. I think that was the beauty of working with a coach, and this coach in particular, is he did ask questions that, looking back, they probably were uncomfortable for him to ask. But I never felt that. Like, he managed that completely out of our dynamic. And he asked me things that they were uncomfortable, and they weren't things my friends were going to ask me, because my friends want me to be comfy and they want to have a glass of wine with me and chill out and have a good time. They don't want to be like, all right, let's get your personal demons out on the table.
Yeah.
Deal with your garbage, and then we'll pack it back. Like, they're not gonna, they're not trained because they weren't mental health professionals. But he did. I guarantee you, because he was like a 40-something-year-old dude asking some 20-year-old about her relationships. Like, I'm sure he was like, oh, this is so awkward, but I got to do it for her. Like, because I think by the time he asked me, we'd been like 6 sessions in. He's like, I just need to point out that the one part of your life you don't answer questions on and you change the subject is personal relationship and having a partner. So what's going on there? No one else in my life was going to do that. Right. So that's exactly to what you say. There's a discomfort there, obviously for me, because I was avoiding it, and for him to have to like push me. But that's kind of that's what I gave him money to do. Like, that's how it works.
Exactly. No, I love that too, because the other piece of that is that if he hadn't stepped up and actually asked the uncomfortable question, or if you would have just, again, shoved it off and not did the work, the inner work, and really, dug to find the answers, like, again, that's a decision that we're making when we decide, I'm going to lie about this question right now and just get rid of this discomfort and stay still and stagnant. But you chose to really dive and figure it out. And that's why you grew and why you are now, a mom and a wife and all of these amazing things. And I think that's so awesome. So, like, for the viewers that are listening, what kind of advice would you give them about moving through fear, right? Like, we don't ever get rid of fear. We know that it's there every day, big and small, but what maybe advice would you give around, the experience that you had, that you would want to share with the viewers about fear?
Oh, aside from hiring someone, because that's not an option for everyone. And I know that. We all do, honestly. I think one thing, it sounds so simple and like basic, but is to really sit down and make a list of all the times fear has helped you. And like, I mean, set a timer for 30 minutes, like really just sit down and keep going. All the times fear has helped you. And then a separate list of all the times fear has held you back or kept you from doing something you wanted to do. And really on that and on the first list of all the things that helped you and kept you safe in a good way, gratitude, man, just like out loud, like, thank you, fear, for looking out for me. Thank you for loving me so much that you would keep me safe, and you'd prioritize me, and thank you, I love you. And then on your list of all the times fears held you back, forgiveness. So not like, oh, fear, like it's just, I like remember the situation and say, okay, fear, I forgive you. I forgive you for that. Even if you don't really, just say it out loud and see what it feels like and go through it, the gratitude and the forgiveness work. And it sounds so little and inane, but it really can shift some things, and it can start to help you notice it more in the moment rather than 5 years later of what's going on. It's a good little tool to play around with and see what comes up. You might be surprised actually of the things that are on the lists.
No, I love that. I'm totally a list person, and I call it brain dumping. I'm switching that up. I think I'm going to call it like a think tank, just like getting it all out. But I brain dump all the time, and I journal as well, like your thoughts and your feelings and the experiences that you're having in the moments, that kind of stuff, because it is really good to take notice, like that awareness again, that awareness of what's going on in our heads, because we get so much junk in there that we have to clear it out, and we need to sort through what is real, what is not, all of those things. So I love that you're saying make the two lists of like when fear showed up and gratitude and forgiveness. Yes, I love that. That's such a simple yet powerful way of being able to just release it and let it go and then move forward, right? Like to be able to clear that space so that you can have a positive energy around your vision for what can be coming now, right? Like that's done, but really accepting and forgiving or being grateful that the things did happen or that you did move on that. I think that's an amazing tool. Thank you for that.
Cool. Well, have fun. Yeah. And the last thing I'd say too, like to this day, and I've been doing this work for over 10 years, right? To this day, I still sometimes can't figure out what the emotion is that's going on, or if it's fear, like, why am I scared right now? Like, what's going on? So that's the other thing I'd say is this is like you said before, this isn't just like, oh, check off the list. Don't have to think about that again. It does keep coming up, and that's okay. You're just getting to the next level. That's a good thing. And just keep being patient with yourself and playing with it and noticing it. Like we try to really model that for our kids as well. My husband and I, like, sometimes we'll be like, I'm really struggling today and I'm feeling anxious and I couldn't tell you why, but I just want everyone, like, I'm just feeling that, and it's in me today. So we just try to, like, it's not always a problem to be solved. Sometimes you can just feel a feeling. Like, it doesn't always have to be like, okay, I gotta like put together a project plan for what to do about this. It's okay. Sometimes you just feel it and see what happens. It's all right.
Feel the feels.
You got it.
I love it. I love that you make that an awareness in your house with your children. Like that in itself, that's a great tip. That's not currently something that happens in my house. We do have like an emotional chart for them to like say, how are you feeling? But like for my husband and I to say like we're anxious or something, we don't model that specifically. I'm the one that asks the questions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to work on that. I'm going to bring that up in conversation. I'm going to weave that through and see how that works. I love that.
Oh, good.
Great. So to close this out, I love like looking towards the future and just kind of having a track of what you want. So now that you are equipped with tools that help you move through those spheres with ease, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Which I know sounds like a crazy thing because we're going month by month, day by day, but like what in the perfect world or whatever you want to think about, right? Like 5 years from now, where do you see yourself and your family?
Oh, it's such a good question. And I won't cheapen it by saying, I don't know, even though like,
That's what we always want to say.
But so what I will say is, this is a new one that no one knows about. You're like the inside scoop.
Yay.
I'm feeling called to write a book lately.
Ooh.
And I know everyone's like writing a book, but there's something about writing that is just working for me lately. And I'm in love with emailing my list, like little love notes every week. And To the point where a friend of mine's on my list. She's like, hey, you might want to actually try to sell something at some point because like you never do. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, right. Still working on the business acumen. But yeah, there's something about writing that's really moving for me. So that's on my list. So if I think of 5 years, I'd love to have written my book, be released, be a bestseller, because we're doing dreams.
Heck yeah.
And I'd love to do, because my kids will be 5 and 7 by then. And I'd love to do some speaking engagements as well. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Having
awesome.
like a breastfed baby doesn't really make for travel all that. Like, sure, I'll come speak. Can I have a breastfeeding break at 2 hours in? No. Yeah. So,
I
it's a
think
little
that's
different.
totally doable. Like, that's totally doable. And there's got to be
Right? We got to
leadership.
change things.
There's got to be leadership conferences that are for mamas that would totally be like, heck yeah, bring your boob and your kid. Like, that's totally fine.
Right? There's a local organization here called Rise Windsor Essex, and it's all about supporting women entrepreneurs and women in STEM in the region. And I wrote to the director who organized it. I said, hey, here's the thing. You guys are running really cool things. I'm a woman entrepreneur. I love it. I can't really show up at 8 p.m. because I have a baby who's really into the Milkies and I'm the only source of the Milkies. So can we organize something different? And she's like, yes, that's a great idea. Of course we can. So anyways, and then pandemic happened.
See? There's always a way. There's always a way. Everything is figure outable. That is like my new saying. Everything is figure outable.
Oh yeah, man. We can solve it. It's fine. We'll solve it. Yeah.
I'm a lyric person, so I've thought of at least 2 songs in this conversation that I just want to like bust out in song. So yeah, I won't go there. But that being said, seriously, this was amazing. I know that we're over our time, but this was awesome. I love talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on and being authentic and sharing and giving us the inside scoop on some things that you're thinking. And it's just, I'm super grateful for your time, your energy, and your knowledge around the topic. So just much appreciation for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm super grateful to you. I've had so much fun talking to you, and this has been the highlight of my day. So thank you so much for letting me come and play.
You're welcome. And before we go, where can the
Yes.
viewers connect with you? Where's the best place?
All right. On all the places, I am Light Up Work. So lightupwork.com, at Light Up Work on Instagram and Facebook. And sorry, the reason I hesitated is that my mom the other day said to me, she actually used the term World Wide Web. And I was like, oh, I know that's what www stands for, but that's weird, Mom. No one says that. Like, just say the website. Anyways,
It was like
so
the
Light Up
dial-up
Work.
days.
Exactly. Do you remember that noise? I don't think I'll ever forget the dial-up noise.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so that's where I am. Light Up Work. That's on all the things.
I love it. I love it. There you go. Connect with Jess on all of the places. You can go find her at Light Up Work. And again, thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know what your biggest takeaway was, right? Like we talked about a lot of different things. We would love to hear from you. And just a reminder to remember to love yourself and live fearlessly. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks, Jess.